All right, everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Great to have you with us. If you're looking for the key insights from today's biggest stories, that can totally bog down, you're definitely in the right place. Today, wow, we are diving into quite a whirlwind of global developments. We've pulled together some really fascinating sources. They paint a pretty vivid picture. We're talking international tensions, some incredible human courage, and even some, well, unexpected logistical headaches.
Mm.
It really is a snapshot of our interconnected world today. And our mission, as always, is to help you quickly get what's most essential from all these reports.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be touching on quite a bit. Things like economic moves against these, well, illicit shipping networks, some surprising reports coming out of active conflict zones,
Mhm.
and also a really quite moving story of sacrifice, a personal sacrifice. And what's so interesting, I think, is how these things that seem totally separate, when you actually put them together, they start to reveal these underlying global patterns, don't they? And some pretty remarkable human responses, too. Things you might just miss otherwise.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. A big economic maneuver to start. Our sources are reporting the UK, they put new sanctions on Russia's so-called shadow fleet. Now, for anyone trying to, get their head around the bigger picture, what exactly is this shadow fleet? And I suppose, why is hitting it specifically such a critical move for the UK right now?
Right. So the shadow fleet, basically, it's this network thing. Older tankers. Often they're not properly registered, maybe not insured. The kind of ships Russia uses to move its oil around, sort of under the radar, lets them get around international price caps, sanctions, that kind of thing. And this UK move, it targets, I think the number is 135 specific tankers, plus two Russian firms involved: a shipping company, Intershipping Services LLC, and an oil trader, Litasco Middle East DMCC, that one based out of Dubai, handles the trading from there. The stated goal from the UK government is, well, pretty direct. They want to, and I'm paraphrasing slightly here, disrupt the flow of oil money going into Vladimir Putin's war chest and essentially try and strand more of this shadow fleet, make it harder for them to operate effectively. So what's really insightful here, I think, is that it's not just broad sanctions. They're aiming right at the sort of the hidden, often quite murky infrastructure Russia really relies on to keep funding its ongoing conflict. It's very targeted.
That sounds like a very direct hit on their financial lifeline, yeah. But, okay, while that economic pressure is building from the outside, our sources also paint a pretty stark picture of how Russia's fueling its war effort from within. The details about drone manufacturing there, especially involving young people. That sounds particularly unsettling. What's the actual story there?
It's quite striking, yeah. There's a video, apparently released by Russia itself, that shows teenagers working at the al-Balah factory. And this factory is reportedly making drones specifically for use against Ukraine. What's really notable here is that it's not just about hiring workers. The factory actually runs its own college. School pupils study drone manufacturing there, and then they go on to work right in the facility. They're specifically assembling Gerin 2 suicide drones, according to reports. Now, these are, relatively inexpensive one-way attack drones. They hit a target, they explode. That's their purpose. So this isn't just like military procurement in the usual sense. It suggests a much deeper societal integration almost, implying that Russia views this conflict as a long-term thing, a marathon, maybe not a sprint. And it seems they're actively shaping their next generation, to serve that goal.
Wow. That's a sobering thought, integrating it right into education. Okay, so from those broader strategies, let's maybe narrow the focus a bit to the immediate human impact. Our sources also bring us a critical update from Gaza, specifically about Israeli operations in Deir al-Balah. What are we learning there, and what's the sort of humanitarian context we need to understand?
Well, the reports indicate that Israeli tanks entered Deir al-Balah, that's a city in Gaza, for the first time on Monday. And Israeli sources are suggesting that some of the remaining Israeli hostages might be held in that city. It's really important here to grasp the immense human complexity on the ground. I mean, the area is incredibly densely packed with Palestinians, people who've been displaced during, more than 21 months of war now in Gaza. According to these sources, they believe at least 20 of the remaining 50 hostages are still alive. So if you try to connect this to the bigger picture, it just highlights these enormous tactical challenges, urban conflict where civilian populations are just completely intertwined with potential military objectives. It makes every single move incredibly fraught with severe humanitarian risks and implications.
Absolutely. It's easy sometimes to get caught up in the big geopolitical moves and military strategies, but then you hear stories about individual courage and they just cut through everything. We've got a really poignant example of that from Bangladesh involving a recent air crash. What happened there?
Yeah, this is one of those stories that really stays with you. It's about human sacrifice, really. The pilot of a Bangladesh Air Force F-7 jet, Flight Lieutenant Tokir Islam Asegor, he tragically died when his aircraft crashed onto a school campus. But what's truly remarkable here, according to the Daily Star newspaper, they cited the military's media wing, ISPR, is that in his final moments, he was actively trying to steer the jet away from the more densely populated areas. He was reportedly aiming for a sparsely inhabited zone right before the crash. Now, tragically, 19 people did lose their lives in the incident, but his deliberate action, trying to divert the plane like that, it potentially saved many, many more lives. Just an extraordinary show of, well, presence of mind and selflessness right at the very end.
That is incredible heroism. Truly heartbreaking, but yeah, also deeply inspiring. Okay, and speaking of military events, but maybe on a completely different scale, we have this rather curious saga involving a British Royal Navy F-35B jet. Apparently, it's been stuck, grounded at an airport in Kerala, India, Thiruvananthapuram Airport for 5 weeks. What's the latest on that whole situation? And what does this sort of, well, frankly, bizarre situation tell us about modern military logistics?
Right, it's quite something. So a British Royal Navy F-35B, that's, a very advanced stealth fighter, vertical takeoff and landing capability, had to make an emergency landing back on June 14th at Thiruvananthapuram Airport in Kerala. It was actually flying from the UK to Australia when it experienced a hydraulic failure mid-flight. So after 5 weeks sitting on the tarmac there, the latest reports say it's finally set to leave tomorrow. Officials have apparently confirmed the fault's been fixed, and the final clearance has been given for it to resume its journey. What this whole episode really does, I think, is underscore the hidden complexities, sometimes the immense logistical challenges of moving cutting-edge military tech around the globe. You have this top-tier, multi-million-dollar F-35 grounded in India for over a month because of what was essentially a hydraulic issue. It just reveals how even a seemingly minor mechanical problem can completely immobilize an incredibly valuable high-tech asset for weeks. And it highlights the huge, often invisible support infrastructure that's needed just to project modern military power across continents. It's not straightforward at all.
No, definitely not. So let's try and pull these threads together. What does this all mean when you step back? We've gone from economic sanctions on these shadow fleets, the really unsettling reports about drone production, then to the tragic heroism of a pilot, and finishing with this complex kind of drawn-out logistical saga of a single high-tech jet. Today's deep dive has really offered, I think, quite a glimpse into the dynamic, multifaceted forces shaping things right now.
Exactly. We've really seen how interconnected global events are, haven't we? You have financial measures directly aimed at influencing international conflicts, and you have these incredibly personal, individual acts of bravery right in the face of disaster. And then just the sheer intricate mechanics of moving military assets across huge distances, it really does underscore how quickly the world can shift, and how all these different layers of information, different kinds of stories, when you put them together, they reveal a much richer and frankly more nuanced picture than any single headline could.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So as you, our listeners, reflect on these stories we've discussed, maybe consider this. How do these individual headlines, seeing them side by side like this, how do they challenge or maybe reinforce your own understanding? Your understanding of global stability, perhaps the nature of modern conflict, and that enduring human element, even in moments of profound crisis.
Yeah, definitely food for thought there. We really hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, maybe a more informed perspective on some of today's really significant developments. What stood out most to you from everything we covered today?